Extra, extra, read all about it. It's Adults Are Newsing.
Our top story tonight: do we trust or antitrust antitrust trysts? Brought to you by Antipasta. That's some tangy tiramisu carbonara. Capiche? Google is the search engine I use whenever my friends refuse to answer my constant insecure line of questions. And Amazon is my go-to retail service for buying funny dog costumes. Someday I'll have a dog. And both are under fire from the FTC for being abusive monopolies. Which begs the question, what is a monopoly? When does a company become a monopoly, and do I become a monopoly if I get bit by one? The idea behind antitrust law is that markets yield more and cheaper stuff when all the companies competing in them are desperately trying to murder each other with crowbars. Economically, corporations can't settle business disputes through murder or by hunting each other for sport. Except for Louisiana, which is a freak state based on weird French law and crawdads. Rather, in a ruthless, cutthroat environment, basically the Hunger Games with neckties, corporations are constantly forced to innovate and slash prices lest they be devoured alive by their competitors. And the beneficiary of this relentless Darwinian corporate warfare is the consumer. Just regular Americans like you and me who buy stuff, like Antipasta. Then you just put in the capybara Alfredo, and there we go. If a company becomes a monopoly through anti-competitive practices, or if it abuses its market dominance at the expense of the consumer, the Justice Department and/or the FTC drags it to court and potentially splits it into smaller companies to restore competition. And there are basically three approaches to what constitutes a monopoly and when to sic the FTC on it. First, price theory. Price theorist folks assess whether the dominant player in the industry is anti-competitive by its actions and its outcome. If there are only one or two companies and they're actively raising prices, this is evidence that they are being anti-competitive. If prices are generally falling, if the consumers are happy, then competition, or at least the threat of competition from potential startups, is still at work. Next, structuralism. Structuralists are less concerned with whether prices are going up or down. They're more concerned with whether or not a company has a dominant share of the market. Even if a company's playing nice, if it takes up too much of the pie, it should be broken up. And then three, just hating corporations in general and trying to break them apart. Because if corporations are bad, screw them. Then mumbling something about monopolies. This is people who just want to stick it to big companies in general, then kind of funhouse mirror their way into a legal excuse to sucker punch markets. Price theory people basically think the whole point of competition is to efficiently allocate resources and to protect you and me from corporate predation. One big, uncompetitive company squatting over an entire market could potentially squander resources and screw us over. But at the same time, big companies have better economies of scale, which allows them to sell goods at lower prices. It's why IKEA can sell chairs cheaper than the Tulsa Armchair Emporium. No offense, Tulsa Armchair Emporium. Your armchairs are great, but they're more expensive. And large corporations have the capital to purchase and fund startups. So snapping up little companies might not be anti-competitive, it might be innovative. Thus, price theorists focus on outcome, specifically harm to consumers. If a company becomes really, really big because it's really, really good, great. Good job, company. Swell to titanic dimensions, as big as you'd like. If IKEA becomes a furniture behemoth because people love its low-cost, high-quality pinewood bed frames and meatballs, good for IKEA. But if absent other corporate giants to compete with, IKEA turns on us and starts jacking up the prices of Frühkentig, Nübstorf, or whatever the Grundle is, and people don't have alternate furniture stores to buy from, that would indicate IKEA is stifling competition or erecting barriers to entry and abusing its bigness. So maybe we should break it up like a cheap Norwegian. Price theory people look at Google's dominance in search engines and think, well, there's nothing to stop users from jumping to Bing, Yahoo, Ask Jeeves, Ask Steve, or Ask Chaz. Google dominates the search engine market because it's just better at it and people prefer it. If Google starts abusing its market dominance and becomes a dickhead, Users will convert to Bing and Google will collapse in on itself like a faulty Odmanjuk. But so far, Google's dominance doesn't appear to result from price fixing because it's free and consumers have plenty of other options, so its dominance is not anti-competitive and therefore not a problem. Prominent price theory proponents include Robert Bork, Chancellor Gorkon, and their son, Robert Borkon. Whereas structuralists think it's not about the outcome, it's about the process. If any one company dominates too much of the market, that is a problem in and of itself. Even if a company becomes dominant through sheer business acumen, low prices, and high-quality antipasta, once a company becomes a market juggernaut, it will be able to buy up or squelch startups and potential rivals. It'll make a profit by warding off competition rather than engaging in it. And that lack of competition means less innovation and long-term opportunity costs for you and me, the consumer. So even if Amazon keeps lowering prices and coming up with hilarious dog costumes to sell me, the FTC should split Amazon up if the company has too big of a share of the market. Otherwise, competition will starve. I'm sympathetic to this approach, and I will open-mouth kiss anybody in government who understands the concept of opportunity cost. But the structuralist position does have some flaws. U.S. law doesn't actually state what percentage of market share constitutes a monopoly. If a company owns 100% of the market, that's definitely a monopoly. But what about 70%? If my horse stilts company makes 70% of all horse stilts, but there are 3 other major pony stilt competitors that each have 10% of the market, I wouldn't call that a monopoly. I'd call that a brilliant startup idea for which I am currently accepting investors. Also, how do you define a market? Are we talking about ebooks or books at large? Golf courses or entertaining places to get drunk outdoors, which also includes ski lodges and the state of Louisiana? If aluminum competes with concrete, wood, and gingerbread in home construction, is a company that dominates the aluminum sales industry actually a monopoly? Are we talking about hilarious dog costumes in general, or just hilarious dog costumes for Halloween specifically? Because the size of the tank determines the danger of the fish. Famous structuralists include current FTC Commissioner Lena Khan, Shere Khan, and former Commerce Secretary Khan Noonien Singh. Khan! Finally, Category 3. Folks who just reflexively hate corporations don't define monopolies by their actions or their percent of the market. They define monopolies in terms of bigness and feelings. Monopoly, by this definition, is just big thing I hate. As of August this year, Amazon absolutely dominates e-commerce with a whopping 38% market share of online retail. Now that is a big chunk of the pie, but many mathematicians suspect 38% is less than half, maybe even less than 40%. Amazon's competitors include Walmart, Target, Alibaba, eBay, Etsy, and worst, Chaz. And Amazon might be engaging in some anti-competitive practices. It might even be engaging in ruthless dickhead-level business tactics. But if it's not a monopoly, then it's not an abusive monopoly, and the FTC has no grounds to prosecute the company, because buyers and sellers can just go elsewhere. Saying that a company which comprises less than half the market, in which consumers have access to a variety of other online retailers, constitutes a monopoly is a stretch, unless you define monopoly as a big company I don't like. Now listen, I realize I'm probably not going to sway the folks who hate corporations because they lost their virginity at a Bernie Sanders rally or something. I get that. And also, congratulations. So let me just talk to the good-natured, very attractive structuralists for a minute. Hey, structuralist friends. There are monopolies we should break up, and I want you to join me. Since 1945, health insurance companies have been federally exempted from antitrust laws. There are at least 9 states where there's only one health insurance company, or at least a highly dominant one. Current law allows for that. All that stuff about competition driving down prices and creating innovation, I 1,000% agree with all of that. So can the price theory borkheads and the structuralist Khanites come together and force health insurance companies to actually compete with one another in a back alley knife fight like God intended? I want to live in a country where health insurance executives have really high blood pressure from fear of competition. When they stroke out, I want to hear that pop from 2 or 3 blocks away, don't you? Finally, if you think monopolies are evil and result in lazy output and subpar results, if you think Competition fosters innovation and efficiency and lower prices. Why would you think a government monopoly would be any different? A monopoly is a monopoly. So let's at least be consistent. If you think charter schools are bad because multiple schooling options undermines the state monopoly on public education, I don't really think you hate monopolies. You just hate some monopolies and you want to cosplay as an antitrust advocate. All that being said, the antitrust arguments over Google and Amazon are a good conversation to have. I'm glad we're talking about this. Both sides are championing free enterprise and competitive markets as a good system. We're not having some dumbass conversation about whether or not capitalism is evil or if we should nationalize the horse stilts industry, which would be a disaster for me. Rather, this is an internal debate amongst free enterprise people about how best to supercharge the market to be as productive and efficient as possible. Great. Personally, I lean towards the price theorist side of things because I think consumer welfare is the best way to make sense of a complicated system. Structuralists make some good points. Just don't lose sight of what we're both working for. A competitive free enterprise system that productively and efficiently produces high-quality antipasta. Ah, that's some good linguatelli, just like a Mario used to make. Competition. Hey, I'm Andrew Heaton, and if you had a TV show, I'd watch it, so you should watch my show, Adults Are Talking with Andrew Heaton. We've got a second one out, and it includes funny sketches. Thanks.